Hi, and welcome back to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. I'm your host, Biz, and thanks for being here. Thanks for being a listener. Thanks for sharing the episodes if you have, if you haven't, and there are particular episodes that really, touch you or resonate with you. I would love for you to share it with others. The goal is to reach as many women as possible, as many sensitive women as possible. And the more we share it, the more people who gather and listen and join us. My guest today is Jennifer Dall, Dr. Jennifer Dall, and we're going to be talking about ADHD. And I know I have quite a few clients who um, believe I'm not sure they've been formally diagnosed, but have ADHD, and sometimes it can be hard to uh, feel like. Um, I understand that for some of my clients, it can be hard to feel as if they are navigating the neurotypical world in a way that feels right, quote unquote, right. But my conversation with Jennifer is really eye opening in terms of we're talking about masking and how to work with your own system so that you thrive and do live your best life with ADHD, and how important it is to honor the good in that. Before we jump into that conversation, my the circle of sacred sensitivity is ongoing. We meet every month. Circle of Sacred Sensitivity, we meet every month on the third Thursday of the month at 12 p.m. Eastern Time via Zoom. So if you were interested in hanging out with other highly sensitive women, join us, please. You can just pop in for one circle, or you can sign up for the membership, and the the circles are a part of that membership. Plus, you get meditations, journaling prompts, rooms to just share what makes you laugh that day, or ask questions and get support. So, if you're interested in that, you can find out more at my website at elizabethcush.com. It has all the info on the Circle of Sacred Sensitivity. But right now, let's jump into my conversation with Jennifer Dall, where we're going to talk all about ADHD. Let's do it. Hi, Jen, and welcome to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. It's so nice to have you here.
Hi, Biz. Thank you for having me. It's just wonderful to talk with you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited for our conversation. But for listeners who might not know who you are, maybe share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Dr. Jennifer Dall, and I am the owner. I created ADHD Holistically as a way to look at sort of some for going away from non-medical ways of dealing with ADHD and things that go along with it. I am a coach and a consultant. I am an author and a speaker, and I spent about 25 years in public education before I took the plunge and moved on over to doing my own thing and working with people outside of the schools. So this has
Mm,
been a big jump, but it's been really, really fascinating. And this is, I think, what I'm called to do.
wow, wow. Yeah, I would imagine that's a very different experience working, doing your own thing versus working in a system.
Yes, it is. It's different, and it's been awakening, eye-opening as a person with ADHD,
Yeah.
going from such systems to finding my own systems.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I um I feel like as a business owner, it can shine a light on a lot of our own personal stuff that we aren't even really maybe ready to look at. But but uh
Yes,
but it's
yes.
good. I mean, it does help us sort of come to terms or whatever, or heal in ways that maybe we weren't sure we needed. But
Mhm.
yeah. So you yourself, I guess, were you officially like diagnosed with ADHD? How did that come about? Because you said you learned later in life, I think, that this
Right.
was
So,
true.
um, being in education and often working with students with ADHD and other learning disabilities, over time we learned a lot more. We're still learning more. And as I myself went to more school, further education, more time with kids, more learning, I started to pay attention to more to what was going on. I think that one of the big things that kind of brought it out for me was as we started to diagnose more girls, find more girls who were showing up, um, I would look at more of them, especially in the last couple of years when I was teaching, and realize that so much of what I saw in them was something that I remembered from me, from when I was
Mm,
their age.
mm,
Um, Before that, I knew about ADHD. I knew things. I would ask people, so do you think I have ADHD? And they'd say, "Oh no, you've done this. You have graduate degrees. You have a doctorate. You have, you run your family. You do all these things. There's no way." And a lot of that was based on what a lot of people think ADHD is, which is, the 8-year-old boy who is impulsive and hyperactive and
yeah.
not the good girl that is focusing and smart and working really,
Mm,
really hard. The more I knew and the more I learned, the more I became more and more convinced. And I finally, after a couple other things, I just finally had the nerve to stand up for myself and ask a psychiatrist and say, this is what I think, and I'd like to really look at it because I don't think this was ever looked at before. Um,
mm,
and so she gave me some surveys. We looked at some things. We talked about it. This was kind of height of pandemic time when getting in to see people was really hard. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and so we went from there. So that's sort of basically how I ended up here. And as I've continued, as I moved away from working with students as much and more with women, especially, and
Hmm.
looking at what was going on with me and what was going on with the people I knew and worked with, realizing how much ADHD mixes with other things, something I call ADHD plus one, where it's like these things are going together and it makes even more that we need to deal with. But I think it gives us an insight into ourselves. And if we can do it with kindness, and an
Mm,
open mind and space, we can kind of look and see, okay, I understand why things happened or why I do things or did things. And what can I maybe do to move forward? Not that we're
yeah.
fixing it or curing, we're just learning better to live as ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. And so, if people were curious or didn't know or had sort of preconceived notions about ADHD,
Mhm.
I mean, it is a neurodivergent, uh, it is neurodivergence, right?
Right. Your
Yeah.
brain works divergently from neurotypical
And
people.
yeah, yeah. But so, what were the things that you noticed about yourself or what you see in women that either may be different from men or even just like what were you noticing in yourself that really stood out for you that
What I
yeah.
was noticing in myself and what I notice in a lot of women is that we've been masking. We have figured out how to do things. We've figured out the games. We talked about the big change from being in a structured system to a non-structured system. So, I went to school, I taught at school. My entire life for so long was basically bells and calendars and this structure that also then being a teacher, there was some creativity, some flexibility, but it was
Hmm.
this structure.
Yeah.
And when I left, was not prepared at all for what that meant, losing that
Mhm.
structure.
Okay.
Um, and when I think back to it, I didn't teach summer school because I had a daughter and I always wanted to be with her. But like the first couple of weeks of summer rather, would be hard because that was also this sort of mini transition going from very structured, very routine, 100 miles per hour to not.
Hmm.
And I never understood that what that was, but now I see it more. And so I have been working on and learning and then coming up with programs and helping other people look at things differently for how with now this big huge time and these goals that are tied to me, how I can work through that and make it work for me. So lots of experiments and some things work for a while and then they don't work. And that's sort of the thing I think with ADHD is you have to be or you should be free to try things and also know that this works today or this doesn't work today. And we're not going
Mm,
to plan it for the rest of our lives, and we're not going to discard it for the rest of our lives because things change. You know,
Hmm.
when we talk about the other things going on, you know, my husband died, and so I was dealing with grief. I last year I was hit by a guy on a bicycle on the
Oh
head
gosh.
and
Oh
ended up with
gosh.
some TBI. So like all these things are coming in together, and but that's life. And knowing about the base of the ADHD and then knowing about these other things and seeing how they overlap, how they make each other worse, how they complement each other. I think this is
Mhm.
something that we don't talk enough about,
Yeah.
that, you know, it's a lot to take on. It's a lot to
Yeah.
handle, and it helps to have people who understand around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you were sharing. Like, I know some of my clients who have ADHD really do struggle with when there is a lack of structure, like
Uh-huh.
a sort of open-ended time, or really finding the times when they do work best, where their energy
Right.
is aligned with the whatever the tasks at hand. But I also see a lot of guilt or shame for
Mm-hmm.
not being able to do it
The right
the
way.
neurotypical way or the right way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of that is stories that have been passed down. So, you know, a lot of us didn't know. We didn't just wake up with ADHD. We just kind of came to the understanding. And so, all during school, all growing up, you may have been doing these things and people didn't understand. And so, you weren't doing it the right way, or you had certain characteristics like being forgetful or not doing things. And people may have chalked it up to like your personality. Oh, you're
Mm,
always forgetful, as opposed
mm,
to maybe there's a reason for it. And
yeah.
so I think those stories, and they continue, you know, and kind of confirmation bias, you keep then seeing more and more when you've done that. And that's really hard to shake. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things, even going in and asking a doctor, because they may not believe you, you know, and a lot of doctors don't know a lot about it still.
Yeah.
Um, and so that takes a lot of courage and time and energy and money to actually go in and say to a doctor that you trust, I want to talk about this.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like so often um, women are not necessarily considered to be
Hmm.
persons who struggle with ADHD, but I think even more than that, doctors tend to mistrust women and when they
Hmm.
know their symptoms but don't necessarily buy in or
Hmm.
take them seriously.
So ADHD, and you know, especially ADHD with grief, are the things that can be having trouble organizing thoughts, prioritizing, taking care of yourself, leading to just being tired from lack of sleep. From, you know, if you think about the mental and emotional work that it takes sometimes to pretend to be something else, you know, pretend not
Yes.
to be ADHD, and so you go to the doctor. Oh well, you're depressed, I think. So here's some magic pill, which it works for some people. I'm not, you know, discounting it, but like if
Yeah.
that's not really the answer, or that's only part of the answer, and we're not looking at other things,
Yeah.
it's just another way of masking it. And here, just take this pill, which may or may not help with any depression that may or may not actually be there. But you know, maybe if you're tired and you're overwhelmed and you're confused, maybe it's other things too.
Right, right. What's going on in the background, or yeah, how
Yeah,
you're managing your day or whatever, the lack of
yeah,
structure or structure. Yeah.
yeah.
So Um, you've mentioned the word masking a couple times, and so maybe for people who don't fully understand what that means, maybe you could share a little bit about that,
Sure. Masking is kind of the idea of covering up or pretending. So, you know, our most recent society-wise masking was with the pandemic when we all wore masks.
right?
And if you know, literal masks, and if you think about it, when you encountered people either on Zoom or in real life, if, you know, this part of their face is covered up, you're only seeing a part of it. And so they're hidden. So much of what you look like, what you're thinking is expressed in your mouth, in your face.
Yeah,
So masking with ADHD is I'm going to pretend to be neurotypical, or what I think neurotypical is supposed to be.
yeah,
So sometimes it can be very situational. Like we go back to the whole concept of school. Some of us know how to be students. We
Mm,
know how to play that game. So we know it's expected. We know to be quiet. That's why girls slip through because we know
mm,
to be quiet. We know
mm-hmm,
to turn the work in, be diligent. But what we're really like is covered up. And you may have a friend or somebody you know who either they are also neurodivergent or they are just somebody that you click with, and you can be different with them
mm,
and not mask with them. But
mm-hmm.
otherwise, especially in maybe unknown situations or situations that seem to have sort of like consequences, like at work, you know, if you don't feel safe, you're showing up a certain way,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
may not feel, people with ADHD at times can have like really be able to think outside the box, have very flexible thinking. But if you're worried about your job, you're worried about your evaluation, you're worried about your money, you're worried about things like that, and you maybe been shot down for it, you sit there and you stay quiet. And
Yeah.
so that's a masking of what's inside you that has good things that we don't let come out because,
Hmm.
you know, it's been hard in the past, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think a lot of highly sensitive women could relate to that,
Yes.
sort of masking how deeply they feel or how easily they get hurt
Hmm.
or how easily they become overwhelmed, right? Like that
Hmm.
you have to sort of you learn how to show up in order to not get shamed or
Yes.
discounted or put down for how you actually are.
Yes. And emotional dysregulation can be a big part, especially for women with ADHD. Part of the whole struggle with executive function is we can take things very, very hard. So something where another person says something, we take it so much harder, and they don't even understand that we have, or they don't understand why we're taking it so hard, and we can't even explain because it wasn't maybe that big of a deal. But we can find ourselves in the bathroom crying or just
Yeah.
really frozen and thinking about it a lot, so that and then being called overly sensitive, right? You're just
Yeah.
overly sensitive, which doesn't really solve anything, whether it's
Mm-mm.
ADHD or not. you know
Right. Right.
it really isn't a fix. So
Mm-mm.
yeah, there's a
Mm.
lot of that with the sensitivity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just feel like how how much energy it takes, as you said, to mask and to show up a
Hmm.
certain way, however you feel like that's supposed to be, when inside there are parts of you that are like, this isn't me. This
Right.
isn't who I truly am, or I'm not, or to just feel unseen or unsafe because you
Hmm.
can't be yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I think one of the benefits is we are talking about it more. Research has been developing, for a long time it was on boys, it was by men, like a lot of medical things. It looks at
Hmm.
the male
Hmm.
side of things, not the female side of things. But we have started reading more and learning more. I think one of the things with the pandemic, it's not that people got ADHD, it's that by slowing down, I think, and taking a lot of those systems away, um,
Mm.
and then having more information, this wealth of information from all sorts of places and the time to look at it, it kind of started to snowball in that people started to learn more about themselves or people they
Yeah.
knew.
Hmm.
I also know that some women and even men, adults kind of come to the learning that they have ADHD or suspect that they might when there's children because there is a hereditary component to it. It's not
Sure.
guaranteed, but there's a hereditary component. If your
Yeah.
child's having trouble in school or a teacher or somebody has noticed something and they go for assessment, during that process, asking questions about them, it can start to, you know, you check little boxes and then you
Yeah.
start to wonder if that's you,
Mm,
you
totally.
know?
Oh, yeah. I know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
have kids that are highly sensitive and saw a lot
yeah.
of myself in them as they were growing up, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, we do that a lot with our kids, and we want the best for them and all of it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you talk about helping
Uh,
holistically, right? Talk about helping uh, uh, women who are coming to terms with ADHD now, later in life. What are some strategies or
mhm.
skills? What I'm not even sure what I'm asking, but yeah, how do
Right.
you help is what I'm asking.
I think that. encouraging them to get a lot of information, both in general and deep diving into themselves, looking at what's happened in the past. So if they believe for some reason that they have ADHD, it's usually they've read something or heard something or taken some quiz, and
Mm,
really looking at those areas where they scored high, if you will, the ones that really stood out. And then within those, so what's impacting your day, your relationships, your life? What were the big aha moments where, oh, now I understand why I do this, and nobody understands why I do this and how hard it is on me. And so
mhm.
start to look at that and what you've done before, if anything has ever worked or what hasn't worked. When I talk about holistic, what I'm talking about is like I'm not against medication, so let's be clear about that. But finding other ways to solve what's or work on what's really going on.
Mm,
So if it's the emotional sensitivity, if it's trouble structuring your day, if it's trouble prioritizing, because we can come up with these grand, wonderful ideas, huge
yeah.
projects, and I'm going to to do all of it. Like the other day, I was going to start my own podcast, and I kind of had the next 10 years in a way planned out, and then I had to
Wow.
go to sleep. Say slow it down, really slow it down, because you just have all these great ideas and you want to do
Mm,
it, and then figuring out what the first steps are. So if I'm
yes,
really thinking
yes,
about doing a
yes.
first podcast, maybe I need to find out something about how to do it. Yes, I can talk on
Mm,
podcasts and I can listen to podcasts and I can read and write, but I'm sure there's more to it, right?
right, right,
And so just helping them find, because we can't solve it all at once.
right.
So I really like to look at like little subtle things, small things. Let's find something and work on getting some success there. Some
Yeah,
things, some strategies, some ways of looking at things, maybe a couple of tools that you feel some success and feel better about yourself, and see if that can't kind of snowball a little bit. And we
yeah.
move on to something else.
Mm,
It can be the little things, because otherwise we can go get, ADHD for dummies or whatever, like some big book. And we're like, we're going to do this and I'm going to do this tomorrow. And by the end of 2025, and and
yeah.
ADHD believes that they can do it, but they can't.
Yeah,
Nobody can.
right, right,
And so
right.
then you're more likely to give up. So
Yeah, yeah,
let's like, what's one thing? I was working with one client, and she had a lot going on. I understand people who have been hit by a lot of stuff,
yeah,
and it was like, let's work on just getting you to move out of the house a little bit. You're working at home. All these things are at home. Let's just see, can we just get you to walk to the end of the block? And that may sound really, really small, but that was big. And she started doing it. Um, and and so that's just started to help. It started to open up. One
yeah,
very small thing for what she was at. You are going through so much right now, honey. We just one little thing. Let's take
yeah.
one little weight off of your shoulders, your head, your heart.
Mm, yeah. I am thinking of conversations with clients who um, get easily overwhelmed
Uh-huh.
and then feel so much shame around getting
Mm-hmm.
stuck. And
Mm-hmm.
so I often will say, like, okay, if the goal is to take a walk, just try putting your shoes on and see how
Mm-hmm.
that feels, right? You take
Mm-hmm.
the one step toward whatever it is, right? And
Yeah.
if you put your shoes on and you're like, I want to go back to bed, well, you know what? You got your shoes on
Yeah.
today, right?
Yeah, so one small step, habit stacking is also good. Habit stacking is where there's something you're already doing, so you add something
Mm,
else. So, an easy one, if you need to start taking some medication for anything, and
yep.
you always brush your teeth at night, and
Yeah.
then you need to take it by, put them by your toothbrush.
Yeah.
So if you want to walk more and
Beautiful.
you have to go to the store or to work or whatever, maybe you have, I know we all have our unofficial official parking spots that we like,
Right,
but
right.
maybe like another
Park a
one
little
that's just
farther.
a
Yeah.
little further, and that's just a
Yeah.
little bit of a walk. Or, okay, I have to go to the bathroom. Maybe I'm going to go to the one on the second floor and take the stairs.
Mm,
Nobody
mm-hmm,
needs to know what I'm doing. I'm just
mm-hmm.
getting a little bit more. So little steps, stacking them onto something that you already do, mostly by habit, are some great ways to just start following through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's
Yeah.
like just building in the momentum for yourself in a
Yeah.
way.
I mean, there is that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also knowing what stops your momentum. It's kind of
Mm.
a joke. I know about it at least. Like, if you come in, taking off your shoes is like a not a death sentence. I don't want to say that, but like I come in the house and I take off my shoes and it's like
That's
sends a
it.
message directly to my brain. I am done. So if I really have anything else to do, even though I like to take the shoes off in the house, like no, they are
Yeah.
staying on and you are going and you are doing this and this and this and then take the shoes off. Because once the shoes are off and then, oh, if I sit on the couch, the
Yeah.
day's
Yeah.
over. We're
Yeah.
done. So
Yeah.
if you know something is going to stop you or slow you down, maybe say, okay, before I do that thing, I'm not telling you not to take your shoes off and sit on the couch, but
Yeah.
maybe before you do that, just one little thing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, because what can stop you is just as big as what sort of
Yeah.
overwhelms you, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, if you, if,
Yeah.
or like picking up your phone, if that's like, I
Oh,
know for so many people, that
yes.
can be the thing that just sidetracks them for
Hmm. Yep.
days,
And then
hours,
you're just
whatever.
gone, whether it's social media, games, the
Yep.
endless stream of email that you don't, shopping. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like almost like I'm not going to
Yes.
pick up my phone until whatever.
Right. Right. Or if there's a coworker that distracts you, or coming home and talking to your child about their day like sends the night in one direction, and you really want to do some things first, even if it's sitting down and resting, like do that for a little bit and then go find out it. If there's a coworker, and I don't mean distracting in a bad way, but like you like them, you want to talk to them, but the two of you get together and you're just talking, tell
Mm,
yourself, okay, I'm gonna go sit down somewhere and I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do this for 20 minutes, or at 10 o'clock I will go talk to her.
hmm.
And try to set in some buffers to going after those things that you know are then going to slow you down and distract you.
Yeah. And how, and those are all beautiful suggestions. How, as far as sort of the mental um, anguish that you might
Mm,
carry for, struggling with
mhm,
being ADHD, maybe not being diagnosed, but having to mask and then realizing,
mhm,
oh, maybe this is really who I am. But also just that sense of, I'm not doing it right. Like, how do you
mm.
help your clients, I don't know, move beyond that sort of story that they've been telling themselves for such a long time?
Um, so we can look at challenging it depending on the client and the relationship and the situation, both challenging how these stories came about, but if they're particularly traumatic or hard, you know,
Yeah,
I'm not a therapist, so I don't do that. And that kind of work, I would probably recommend talking to somebody who's more
sure.
specifically therapy. But challenging them, you say you failed because you didn't do this. Is that true? Is that totally true? Some of those things. What would you tell
Hmm.
somebody else? Maybe we
Hmm.
can laugh about it because we can blow things up. So I forgot to run the dishwasher and I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe kind of trying to even laugh about it. Okay, so you didn't run the dishwasher. Okay,
Yeah, right.
so
Yeah,
now
right.
what?
Yeah,
And
right.
try
The
to
world is going
take
to be
it
over. Yeah, right.
right, but not putting them down because they think that, that's how they're feeling, but trying to back off on that. Like,
Mm,
okay, so why didn't you? Like what are
hmm.
the reasons and what can we look, and taking
Yeah,
some of the emotional pressure off of it about
yeah,
the story,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then, walking that line with therapy because well, I have a background in school counseling and stuff. I'm not
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
therapist.
Yeah, but you understand the the
But
the
I
role that
understand,
the
yeah,
trauma, yeah,
yeah.
can play within
We're
that
trying to work more
story.
with now, taking with now, understanding before and where we're going, but what are some things now that
Hmm.
we can do?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, it feels like such well, no, it just feels like rewarding work just in terms of like how to
Mhm,
um kind of see where your clients come to you and then, finding ways to help them move more easily
mhm,
through life with
mhm.
with who they are.
I feel like for people, women who have been hit by a lot, like I may not have been through everything you've been through, but I understand having been through a lot of things and the kind of things people can say to you that aren't helpful and
Yeah.
the ways they can be. And I'm just trying to like, I see you and I see this is a lot. I'm telling you, I'm acknowledging this is a lot. And you know, you're
Yeah.
telling yourself it's not and that you should be able to do it like this, but this is a
Yes.
lot. So together, let's, hold hands, if you will, and let's find somewhere to start.
Mm. Yeah.
And, is it the little easy low-hanging fruit, or is it kind of looking at that big thing like your relationship is almost over, or you're going to lose your job? So, like, what can we do to protect you and help you
Yeah.
no matter how those situations end up?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there were
Yeah.
someone listening who maybe thinks they have ADHD, not 100% sure, feeling a little whatever about it, what would you want them to know?
I'd want them to know that what they're thinking and feeling is completely valid. And I would
Mm.
encourage them to get quiet and sit with that and then do a little bit of research, whether it's books, articles, podcasts, from reputable people. Like we talked about before, something is triggering this, not triggering, but like something is like ringing a little bell for
Poking.
you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
is poking at you. So what is that? Why do you think that? In the past, can you look at that with kindness? What's making you think that? And how much of an impact and what can you learn more about it? Because that's
Mm.
going to help too and won't be so scary.
Yeah.
Finding out what, having trouble regulating your emotions. Like, let's just find out a little bit more about it because it's a big concept. Where is it impacting you? And let's just sit with that
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and find somebody who gets it. That's what I would say. Find somebody who gets it and gets
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Well, I think that piece of getting curious, right? Just
Yes.
doing a little exploration opens the door in terms of, yeah, you're learning, you're getting curious. It's a more open-hearted exploration, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that there are strengths to having ADHD or being neurodivergent. What would you share as some of those positives around the neurodivergent
I
traits?
think that we can have fantastic ideas. We can think outside the box and break free of some of the confines that, other people maybe like, this is the way, this is the road, and we can think of other ideas, other ways of doing it. If we're encouraged, we have the space, it can be like just bouncing off, like this idea leads to this idea, this leads to this idea, and then you never know where along that, as long as you're accepting of all the ideas, the best one's going to be. Some of them are going to be silly, some of them are going to be stupid, some of them are going to be unrealistic, but like I started off here, but I think this over here, I think this is actually a really good solution
Mm.
for whatever the problem or project or task or question
Hmm.
might be. So I think just embracing that openness of mind, I think I think that's a kind thing to do.
Hmm. Very nice. So if there were listeners who wanted to find out more about you, potentially working with you, how would they find you?
They can go to Instagram. I'm at adhd.holistically.com and there's information there. I also have my website, adhdholistically.com. And once you're there, you can sign up for my newsletter, which I send out a lot of information. It has links to the podcasts I'm on, the places I'm going. You can get 30 quick hacks, and there's some information about the quick win coaching that I do, trying
Mm.
again to keep it small and limited at looking for a small solution for a small thing, tackling one thing at a time.
Yeah.
I find that works best for me as a coach and for a lot of my clients. So
Hmm.
those are all the way, and you can always go on there and then send me an email or on Instagram, do something.
Nice.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I will share all those links in the
thank
show
you.
notes. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me, Biz. This was really good. I had fun.
Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I know my listeners will too.
Good. I'm glad. And reach out to me for anything.
Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed that conversation with Jennifer. She is a kind soul, and I feel as if it's important as I meet more compassionate women in the world that those connections feel just so, so important. And um, yeah, I just really enjoyed our conversation. I enjoyed her frankness about her own work on learning about ADHD and managing it for herself and for her clients. And I know for some of my clients, the overwhelm of when she was discussing, having big ideas, having, projects that are beautiful and uh, a very wide scope, but then the effort or the decisions about where do I start? I know that can be a big, big challenge, and I've worked with my clients through, finding those small steps. So that really resonated with me, and I hope some of the conversation resonated with you, whether you have ADHD or you know people with ADHD in your life. I felt like it was an important conversation. And I'd love your feedback. If this is something that resonated with you or you had thoughts or ideas about it, please share them. I'd love to hear more from you. You can DM me on Instagram, you can shoot me an email. It's easy to find me. And if you're interested in hanging out with me, come join one of our circles of sacred sensitivity. If you are a sensitive woman, a highly sensitive woman, we would welcome you. So we meet monthly, as I shared at the beginning of the podcast. You can find out more on my website, but come hang out with us. The third Thursday of every month, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and we meet via Zoom. I make it easy. I hope you'll join us, and I hope to connect more with you here next time on the podcast.